Welcome to the Riff and Chips podcast crossover. I'm your host, Phil Vernon, and today's guests are Luke Soneji and Harry Higginson, hosts of the Out Crew podcast. The Out Crew started up in September 2023 with the aim of amplifying the voices of lesser represented groups within heavy music and promote diversity within the scene. I caught up with Luke and Harry to discuss the journey so far and the future of the pod. Join us as we discuss Harry and Luke's time in Exeter, albums by the Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir and Beecher, and the art of pickling. Harry, Luke, welcome to Riff and Chips.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us on, Phil. It's really good to be here.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting personally yet, Harry.
No, we haven't yet, unfortunately.
Luke, obviously, I've met you a couple of times at a few shows and stuff. So we start, as we always do on Riff and Chips, and I think most pods of our ilk do, with finding out how you both got into heavy music. So, Harry, do you want to start with us first?
Yeah, of course. I owe my start of getting into heavy music from kind of my brother. A lot of people, it's their parents, but for me, it's my brother. When I was 5 or 6, got me into a lot of pop punk bands, so Blink-182, Green Day, early Fall Out Boy. And then from then, we played Tony Hawk Pro Skater together. And through that, you get a lot wider spectrum of punk, including a lot of that pop punk stuff, but stuff like Rage Against the Machine, Papa Roach. There's one song from that first Papa Roach album, Blood Brothers, which I still love to this day. Don't like Papa Roach, but that one song slaps.
Yeah, it's great.
And then when I was a teenager, I started doing a bit of independent exploring. I was on the emo side of Twitter. So that ended up being a lot of shitty post-hardcore bands like Asking Alexandria, Pierced the Veil, Sticking with Sirens. I grew out of that fairly quickly. Pop punk kept running through it, like Neck Deep and the Wonder Years and all that. And 4 Year Strong as well were one of my favourite bands. And I still have a lot of love for them.
I'm really disappointed I didn't see them the other night.
Oh yeah, no, I saw the tour come through, and I caught them a couple of years ago when they were doing the the Rise or Die Trying 10-year anniversary tour.
Yeah,
which was amazing. And they're so good. But I wasn't able to catch them with Koyo when they've come through this time. But yeah, from there I went into, because now I am the Hardcore Goblin on the Out Crew podcast.
Amazing.
I just talk about hardcore all the time, and I got into that through the empirical hardcore bands like Stick to Your Guns, Comeback Kid, that kind of shit. And was from there, I just did a bit of exploring, found bands like Every Time I Die, Knocked Loose, and then bands like Power Trip and Higher Power and Backtrack, kind of in the late 2010s. And from there, went to uni, met Luke. Luke and our group of mates at uni broadened my musical horizons a lot. But I came back to hardcore because I still love that shit.
Yeah.
And so now I predominantly listen to hardcore, lots of other experimental corners of music, got a lot of love for the kind of white boy hip hop that a lot of people like Denzel Curry, Danny Brown.
Yeah. The kind of the Outbreak staples.
The Outbreak staples, exactly. Exactly. I actually liked them before they were booked for Outbreak.
Whoa. Like that.
And then more recently I've been getting into stuff been doing my hardcore homework, been getting into bands like Bane and Gorilla Biscuits, and then the emo bands from the 90s like Cat and Jazz, Promise Ring, that kind of shit. But that's me. I'm happy to hand over to Luke now.
Yeah, let's hear it, Luke.
Cool. Well, I started listening to heavy music around the age of 15, I think. I'd heard some sort of guitar bands before, like Queens of the Stone Age and Zeppelin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When I started listening to proper metal was it was kind of 2014 kind of time, I think. I heard someone mention, I can't remember where I found out about Ride the Lightning by Metallica, but I heard it mentioned somewhere.
Great place to start.
I put the song Ride the Lightning on, and I was like, this is sick. And because it was 2014, I had a whole internet full of metal that I could just blast through.
Yeah.
Which is what I did. Next up, bands like Maiden, Sabbath, the rest of the big four. More modern-ish metal bands like Mastodon, Lamb of God, that kind of thing. And then it didn't take that long until I went all in on death metal.
All you need is that first little taste, isn't it? And you're like, yeah.
And these days, death metal now is my favorite genre of all time, and my most listened to genre of all time. Sort of shows-wise, I only really started going to them when I started uni.
Yeah.
Harry just mentioned we met at uni. We went to Exeter.
Exeter,
and there wasn't a whole load of touring bands going through Exeter.
So you've got the Cavern, Lemon Grove?
Yeah. We had the Cavern, which I was about to say the Cavern actually had some local and sort of like local Exeter bands and sort of Devon and Cornwall sort of heavy bands that play sometimes, which were fun. So we used to go. We used to end up at the Cavern like once a week minimum, like maybe twice a week.
Yeah, nice.
Harry and I were part of the Uni Rock and Metal Society there.
Yep.
And we would organise like live music events at the Cavern.
Nice.
Which is a lot of fun.
We put on some really cool bands. Like
we did, yeah.
I think the biggest name that we put on, which is not that big in the grand scheme of things, but Southwest Legends Mother Vulture.
All right, okay, yeah.
Like quite early for them as well. I think they'd only just released their first EP.
Yeah.
And they were absolutely insane. And
yeah.
I remember watching them because I was like doing a lot of the admin. So I'd done like the risk assessment for all this shit. And I was like, I didn't really plan for like the singer and the bassist jumping off the stage and starting to like just perform in the middle of the space. I don't think we're insured for that, but it's fine.
Yeah, I think it was like 2018 or 19 that was. And like I just saw them like the other week headline Thekla.
Mad.
Like, and it was packed. So like they really have like that's definitely the sort of biggest name in Southwest heavy music that we booked.
I mean, it still seems to pop up every now and again on tours and stuff.
Yeah, I saw Gel played there last year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It's doing a lot better than it was. Like when we were there in that 3-year period, there really weren't that many big tours that came through. I think the biggest one was like 100 Reasons played there. And obviously that didn't have much appeal to like people who weren't conscious of like UK like alt rock and post hardcore when they were like most of the student body were just not interested. It wasn't really for the younger people.
Ultimately, their peak was kind of 10 years earlier again, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So unless you were around then, I guess a lot of those people arguably would have been potentially too young to have picked up on it. So,
and now you've got bands coming through that people definitely fucking know about. I mean, Capital Decapitation did a tour that hit Phoenix a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Municipal Waste as well, Carcass.
Cruelty
because Carcass did that huge tour, didn't they? With like about 30 odd UK shows. There's been a couple of those over the past few years. Like bands all of a sudden that they're like, we're going to do a proper full UK tour with like shitloads of shows. Because I think, was there a Decapitated tour maybe relatively recently that seemed to hit up shitloads of venues as well?
There's been quite
a number. I can't remember.
Yeah. There's been a
I know
number.
there was definitely Obituary did that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They toured the UK for like 3 weeks and played like everywhere, but I still managed to miss it.
But yeah, bands seem to be doing it a bit more, which is cool. But I guess with everything that's gone on, maybe it's harder to come and tour over here now in the same way that it's much harder for bands like us to go and tour over in Europe. So, maybe if they're going to come over here, they're like, let's kind of make the most of it. And, it's hard to take big tours to big venues with ticket price and stuff. So I think there's probably a lot less risk in doing a lot of smaller shows than maybe there are in, putting on 3 or 4 bigger ones. But yeah, long may that continue, because to spread it around and, see all these huge bands play in places like, Bournemouth and, Liverpool, and all these huge people popping up places like Southend and all these like Carlisle or places like that, it'd be, the more shows we can get into towns like that, the better for sure. So you guys met in uni, kind of how did you meet? Was it just a chance encounter, or was it through the Rock Society? Or
yeah, it was through the Rock and Metal Society. In our first year, sort of quite early on, after we started in September.
Yeah.
I think it was only like maybe in October that we ended up meeting. We actually ended up living together.
Okay.
In our second year, and that decision was made quite early on into the first year. So
kind of bagseed it.
Yeah.
Luke, you say you're Bath based, so have you always kind of born and bred in Bath? Bath, not famous for having like a big scene as such.
Yeah, no, I'm actually from London originally, born and raised in West London.
Okay.
And I now live in Bath because I study a PhD at the university.
Nice. So what about yourself, Harry? Where was your like formative years then, before the uni?
Born and raised in Southeast London.
Okay.
I've now since moved to North London. Actually, not a million miles away from where Luke grew up.
Okay.
But I was in kind of Southeast London on the Kent border, so getting into London for gigs. New Cross was fairly easy.
Yeah.
For New Cross Inn, but otherwise it was like over an hour to get to Camden, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't get out to as many gigs as I would have wanted to, and now having moved to North London, I am able to get out to so much more shit, and it is wonderful because it's been timed really nicely because the London heavy music scene is doing silly things at the moment. There's so many gigs going on. Genuinely spoiled for choice.
moving on to the pod. So you started Out Crew in September 23, is that right? I had a quick look at your first episode.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? What kind of made you want to do it?
I'm going to hand this over to Luke because this was mostly Luke's idea.
Yeah, I came up with the idea for the podcast because I've been thinking about getting involved in the music scene for a while. Like before at uni, I used to put on shows sometimes. When I was in sixth form, I used to play bass quite a lot.
Yep.
But I haven't really touched it in years, so I wasn't really that motivated to actually start a band. I've been listening to sort of metal podcasts for a while. Specifically, the one I was listening to quite a lot at the time, I still do, is Bangers and Mosh podcast. Shout out Jimmy, Daz and Defo.
Yeah, big time, yeah.
As well as a few others. And I was just on my way back from a gig once, sort of listening to podcasts. It was actually, the gig was at a Bristol Waterstones.
Oh, was it the Wallowing show, Waterstones?
It.
Infamous. That's like the UK's like, what the fuck is up Denny's equivalent, I think.
I just thought, this could be cool. Like, I might as well give this a try. Like, it seems fun. In terms of what the podcast is about, which I guess Harry can explain in a bit, the sort of specific thing I wanted to do with the podcast, because I'm a little queer fellow, so I always like to see it in the scene, and I'm from an ethnic minority background too, so I thought it would be nice to have a chat with others like me about our experiences in the scene, because I don't really hear that elsewhere. And also other people who might not be like me and aren't like me, but do also share the experience of being a minority group in heavy music. And then I was like, well, I don't want to do it by myself. Who could I do it with?
That's where I came in.
Message Harry. They were up for it. And then here we are like a year and a half later.
Amazing.
My background is that I had done some music journalism. I had done some journalism, which was a really shit job that I got straight out of uni. But I'd done some music writing initially as a hobby on Sputnik Music, which is like a music review kind of blogging website. And then I'd written for the slightly infamous Discovered magazine, which has polarized a lot of opinions in the scene for stuff that I won't necessarily go into. But I did quite a lot of writing for them, did a lot of cool shit with them. And then they folded in early 2023. And I was left not doing any writing about music anymore, which I was sad about because I love doing that. I got to do so much cool shit. I interviewed Year of the Knife way back when. I'd done interviews with Scott Vogel from Terror. And I was like, I just want to keep doing this. And so like 6 months later, Luke popped up and was like, yo, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, yeah, all right. And we've just been going along then. So the goal of the podcast is to talk to underrepresented people in metal and heavy music, whichever way that comes up. We talk to neurodivergent people, we talk to people of color, we talk to queer people. We just want to get kind of those unheard perspectives. Yeah. Because there was something that I read online a couple of days ago, I can't remember where I saw it, which was like metal and heavy music are often predominantly made by white men, but it's not just for them.
Yes.
That struck a tone for me of like, that's kind of why we do this podcast, not just because it's predominant. Like you look at a lineup and the crowd will be way more representative of the population than a lineup will be, but also there are those voices, and unless you give those people who are making music, who are in the scene, more of a place to talk about their position and their experience, they become the exceptions in the scene rather than people who have something to say. They become that's the band with the girl who playing it. Oh, that's the band with the black lead singer. They become, by virtue of not necessarily having a space to, in like a because we try not to like put people on the spot. We try not to be like, so you're a woman. What's woman like?
Yeah.
And there's definitely been an evolution. I think some of the earlier podcasts were slightly clumsier with this, but we try and ask interesting questions, get interesting perspectives on stuff. And even if just a couple of people listen to it and they're like, oh yeah, like my perspective is represented, my experience is represented through this band, maybe I can start a zine, go to more shows, start a band, do whatever. If one person does that would be really sick. But that's kind of my story and why we're doing it.
It's such a great basis for a podcast. Anything that can spread positivity, inclusivity in the scene. I mean, I think we're quite lucky, and obviously there's unfortunate outliers in every aspect of life, some more than others, but I think we're quite lucky in the metal and hardcore scene is that it genuinely, as a whole, is very welcoming of people from all across the spectrum. I'm sure there's probably still some work to do in various places. Every now and again, you'll have kind of one unhelpful comment or some sort of thing that pops up that feels like it sets us back a couple of years. There was obviously the comments out of Bloodstock a couple of years back that were quite disappointing. You hear it and you're kind of like, oh God, I thought we were over this. And I'm sure, how we are as a society, we'll continue to get those little stumbles. But I think, doing the things that you're doing and talking about it and allowing people to talk about it in a positive way can only be a good thing. So I think it's a real great premise. Like you say, you've had a real cool spectrum of guests so far, from people from bands or people that put on shows. I can only assume you're just the idea is just to keep continuing, keep trying to get people on board. And
yeah,
pretty much. Yeah,
we've done a lot of Bristol scene at the moment, and just because of people that Luke knows, and it's very easy to reach out to people that you know personally. And like Luke, you're like omnipresent at Bristol gigs. Like every other day, it feels like you're sending me a message of, oh yeah, I'm going to go see this really sick band tonight. So
that's where we met, just outside the Griffin. Just
yeah.
And like I think the next step is to try and branch out a little bit more. We've had some quite ambitious guests on. We had Nat from the Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir, who we're going to talk about a little bit later.
We are,
and she was she's one of my favorite bands. Was blown away that we got her on. We got the lead singer of Svalbard on very early, which is still crazy, and we're really super grateful for her for coming on. But those kind of interviews are harder to come by when you're a small podcast, when you're a small platform. And so we're trying to do cool things. Which isn't to say that the smaller bands that we have on, like some of the shit that we've got to do with, like Tin from Uncertainty and Connor and Paul from Perp Walk, are like, those are three of my favorite interviews we've ever done, and those are three Bristol bands that aren't massive, but they were lovely people to have on.
Yeah. Obviously, it's great for exposure as a pod. You want to get those guests, one, because we want to speak to them because we look up to them, but two, because we're also in the background, we're like, oh, if I can get that person on the pod, it's all good for that. But like I say, people in small bands have interesting stories too. Sometimes the more interesting ones, because they're the ones that are still kind of struggling to get that foothold and kind of finding their way themselves. So,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, I quite like talking to people that I actually see out and about, because I just think it's nice to hear perspectives from people that you actually get to meet, as opposed to people that you see on the internet.
Builds a sense of connection and makes you, in a selfish way, it makes me feel a lot more connected to the UK heavy music scene. And hopefully by giving people from the UK scene a chance to chat on a podcast, it makes everyone feel more connected. Like they kind of, not to get parasocial with it, but they know a little bit more about the people who they watch every other week opening shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I 100% agree. The kind of 20 episodes I did at the first season of this, every single one apart from one was with a member of the UK scene. Some of them current, some of them older bands and stuff like that. But what you've said there is spot on. You do feel so much closer to it. Because of work commitments and other things, and having a millennial dog with anxiety that can't be left on his own, I don't get to as many shows as I'd like to anymore. And sometimes, even though being in the band and playing shows and being a part of it a bit, I keep my foot in it. I certainly don't feel as connected to it as I probably did 20 years ago. So it is nice to chat to people around the scene, sort of thing, and definitely feel a part of it 100%. So as well as chatting to people within the scene, you kind of just generally chat music in general between yourselves on the pod. One of the features I really enjoy is the show and tell feature.
Nice.
At the start of every episode, it sounds like, at some point the week before, you send each other an album to listen to, and then you start the episode by chatting about it. As this is a bit of a crossover series, we thought we'd bring that into this episode. So, Luke, why don't you tell me, Harry's already kind of touched on it, the album that you guys shared with me to listen to and why you decided to choose that record?
Yeah, sure. Well, we gave you the album Slow Murder by the Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir. Like Harry mentioned, Nat, the vocalist of the band, is someone we had on the podcast. I think it was last year at some point.
Last year.
Don't remember exactly when it was, early last year. It's not an unreasonable statement to make that Harry might be the biggest Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir fan in the whole of the UK.
Potentially.
Wear that crown with pride, yeah.
I thought this would be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, straight off the back, I think I was out walking the dog when you messaged me about it, listening to music anyway, so I threw it straight on. I mean, straight off the impressions, I loved it. I thought it was great. Ticks a lot of boxes for me in terms of stuff that I like. Anything that can kind of go from sounding like the Locust 1 minute to a kind of almost like obituary style stomp riff. I think one of the first, is it the first main track? Maybe I can't remember if it's the end of the first track or maybe the second track, Cow Tools, that like the first kind of heavy part that kicks in is almost like a straight up death metal stomp riff.
Oh yeah. Cow Tools is a fight song.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't sure where it was going to go after this, because obviously the intro is a very different thing. And then it comes into that. I was like, I wasn't expecting this. And then it goes quite Dillinger Escape Plan-y in parts. And then some of the vocals are absolutely wild. They sound almost like quite like Nick Cave-esque, kind of very poetic, very political. I think the first note I wrote in my phone about it was, what genre is it? Yes.
Yeah.
There's definitely one or two of them.
There's multiple. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a look into them. Like I said, I think I'd seen their name around. I'm not sure. Have they been over here? And maybe I've just seen them on some like US tour posters or show posters potentially.
Yeah, they've never been to the UK or the EU. I really want them to come over because I think people would love them. But no, they've done some big tours. I can't remember who with now. I think they played some shows with the Body. I think they played a couple of shows with Full of Hell as well. So they're in that, and bands like Chat Pile as well. Nat, the singer, does a lot of Chat Pile's merch. So if you go to a Chat Pile show in April, I think is when they're coming over, you will probably buy a shirt that has got a tangential connection to the Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're a band that I feel deserves so much more love. I love them. I think they're so
was
good.
Great. I mean, off the back of it, I felt compelled enough straight away to go and listen to the stuff that's came since. So I think, was it Brightly Lit for
Bad Decisions?
Yeah, was that because was that just a single? I can't remember.
It was a split single with a band called Rotting in Dirt.
Right, okay, that makes sense. And then this year they put out a track called Discourse, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love that song.
Discourse, not Discourse, which is obviously a nice little play on words. Which, again, is great. It's just carried on from where they've left off. I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye out for when their next release drops. Standout tracks for me, I think I've got down here, Cesspool. I really enjoyed, real slow intro, and then like a very typical, almost kind of metalcore riff.
Yeah.
And then it goes off on one. And the closer, Werewolf, very Every Time I Die kind of song title name. But yeah, that's great. And also, is it the track after Set Boy? Is it Neema, however it's pronounced? The kind of big, I say big ending. It's pretty much the whole second half of the song. Just that big, huge, open. Really enjoyed it. I very much appreciate you pointing me in the direction of it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
There's a friend who, I think I was halfway through maybe the third song, and I'd already messaged them being like, do you know this band? This is a bit of you. And then they messaged me back 4 minutes later. They hadn't heard them, but they were like, fuck yeah, this is a bit of me.
Nice.
So look at how you've already picked up on, some of the bands that they might sound like, if you're into anything from things like The Body, Full of Hell, right down to bands like Chat Pile, The Locust, Dillinger Escape Plan, even bands probably like the Calloused Boys to a point in terms of how flippy between genres they are.
Yeah.
Definitely check them out. They have an Arctangent band screamed all over them.
Oh yeah.
So
definitely.
Hopefully, James picks them up at some point and brings them over. Maybe, have they got an album due? Is that what the single was from? Do we know?
I don't know yet. I would expect something soon because they've not dropped full length in 3 years. I know that Nat, the singer, is playing in an excellent screamo band called Rosemary Nods the Grave.
Okay.
So I don't know how much time they're splitting with the other band, but they seem to be doing like 15 things at the same time. So for all we know, there could be something coming this year. I hope there is, but I genuinely don't know.
Now, in return, I gave you probably one of my favourite records of all time. No surprise to any regular listener of the pod. The album I passed over to you guys was Breaking the Fourth Wall by Beecher. So what were your thoughts?
Do you want to go first, Harry?
Yeah, I was surprised by kind of how much DNA the albums that we shared each other held. Like,
100%.
There's so much overlap here. Like, I was getting a lot of... It's an interesting album because it kind of sits between that like 90s and early or punk and hardcore space of like Converge, Dillinger, Every Time I Die, The Locust. And then there are moments, flashes of where metalcore is just about to pivot at this point, where there are like some, I think it's on Dead for Weeks or Burning Surface, I can't remember which track, but there are flashes of these like more melodic lead guitar driven choruses. And I'm like, that sounds like where bands like Killswitch are going to take metalcore. Bands like Trivium. It doesn't sound like those bands, but it's like glimpses of where it's just about to go. Yeah, it's a very atmospheric, kind of oppressive feeling album.
Yeah.
It feels dark, and in that way it really reminded me of early Vane and Disembodied as well.
Yeah.
The other comparison I make, and you might think I'm insane for this, is they kind of sound like if Enter Shikari didn't have any, like, early Enter Shikari had no electronic elements at all, and it was just the glitchy, energetic metalcore without any of the. It was, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'd never heard of Beecher, and looking at their Spotify monthly listeners, they've not been doing anything for a little while.
No. So Beecher, to give people a bit of history, so they're a Manchester band. They put out an EP maybe 2001-ish. The debut kind of album was Breaking the Fourth Wall, which I think was 2000. I want to say 2003.
Yeah, I've got 2003 here.
So they recorded it. They went to God City and recorded it with Kurt Ballou in Boston. That's why it sounds fucking incredible. And like you said, they had all that energy that came kind of out of the back of those late 90s, early metalcore, hardcore crossover bands you talked about. You know, bands like Coalesce, Botch, Dillinger Escape Plan. There's a lot of that, but some parts it's more accessible. In some parts it's arguably more extreme. Interesting that you mentioned both Kill Switch and kind of Enter Shikari there, because I've seen Beecher on shows with both bands. So,
oh, really?
So there was a tour in 2004, I want to say, that was Kill Switch Engage, Poison the Well, and Beecher. And I actually saw Enter Shikari open for Beecher. So it was at the Cockpit in Leeds, I think, when Beecher were touring with their second album, 2005. I think it was a Beecher headline tour with Architects supporting.
Mad.
And then it was Devil Sold His Soul, then Enter Shikari. Enter Shikari opened up. What were your thoughts, Luke?
Well, I thought it was fun overall.
Yeah.
Like Harry said, I hadn't heard of Beecher before.
Yeah.
And I sort of parallels while Beecher were breaking the fourth wall in 2003, Harry and I were celebrating our 4th birthday. So I think it's safe to say that we missed it when it came out.
Well, I was out celebrating my 18th.
So yeah, like 2000s metal in general is a bit of a blind spot for me, because I don't really know stuff that happened in real time in like the second half of the 2010s onwards, but I also know a lot about like the classic 80s thrash era and like 90s death metal, because it's music that I love, and I've just for the last like 10 years like been listening to loads of that. But like this kind of era is like I really don't know like that much about it. It's not something I've listened to.
No.
I've not really ever gone in on it. But no, yeah, I thought it was fun. Got high energy, fast and frantic riffing, which I always appreciate. Not sure really how to word this, but like the guitar tone sounds, it's not happy, that's the wrong word, but like it's kind of like it kind of sounds positive. Like
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like it's not like a black metal or like that.
No,
kind
it's
of thing.
it's a really kind of, I won't say clean, but it's not clean in terms of a guitar tone clean. It's like a really clear, crisp guitar tone. It's more kind of crunchy, like everything, like every little movement, and there's some really kind of fast moving riffs, but every single note you hear. I mean, they were always great live. They play a really good video of them went up recently, actually. The guys from South Wales, Massive, have been putting up a load of their old shows on YouTube recently. And they used to film shows right back in the day, and they've put a bunch of shows on recently from kind of TJ's and Le Pub in Newport from like the early kind of 2003 to kind of 2005, 6. And, you know, Beecher's on there, Comeback Kid, maybe Hope Con, Modern Life is War, Converge, loads of touring bands, and they've put a bunch of real cool shows up on YouTube recently. So definitely worth checking out. Yeah, they were a great live band as well. And I think that play in with the Kurt Ballou production is kind of where you get that kind of real crisp kind of riffs and guitar tones from 100%.
Yeah.
Something I also found interesting was that the first 2005 re-release of the album, which is the one that's on streaming platforms with all the bonus tracks, that was released by Earache Records, which is a label I've heard a lot about, but most of the time I hear it mentioned with like extreme metal bands from like a bit before that, maybe like Napalm, Carcass, Godflesh, that kind of. So I wasn't really familiar with like this era.
So the original came out on, there was a great label in the early 2000s kind of called Calculated Risk, a UK kind of metal label, a lot of heavier bands. I'm not sure if bands like Eden Main maybe were on Calculated Risk, but it was like a lot of great bands from that era were on that label, and Earache picked them up for the second album.
Okay.
And then they did a re-release of Breaking the Fourth Wall with the bonus tracks and like the BBC Maida Vale live stuff. Even at the time then, this was a time when Earache was very much kind of decapitated, deicide.
Yeah.
You're right in the fact that it was much more of like a kind of extreme label. Well, I'm glad you both enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thought it was great.
For anyone that's not heard it, especially if you were 4 like these two clowns, go back and check out Beecher. Long since done. They did a couple of reunion shows in 2013, but I can't see us getting much more from them. Their whole back catalogue is worth a listen. Last kind of pod related question. I'll ask you both individually. I'll start with you, Luke. Who would your dream guest be on the pod?
I've got a few, but my main one is Joe Bench, formerly of Bolt Thrower.
Yes.
Usually credited as the first woman to do extreme metal in the UK. Sick band. But I don't know if she's active in metal at all anymore, or
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean she might not do an interview.
But
manifest, just put it out there.
Yeah.
That's what I did the other day on Twitter. I was like, right, I want to go after this person, and I just put it out there, and someone actually sent me details of their press. So
Nice.
You never know.
Oh shit.
How
if
about
we are
yourself, Harry?
manifesting, I'm going to be a bit cheeky and take advantage of the situation that we're in and say that it would be really cool to chat to Justine from Church Road at some point.
Justine will be happy to chat. She's lovely.
Someone that's been on the guest. We've got a Google Doc of people we want to speak to that we add to sometimes, and someone that's been on the list since day one is Charlie XCX.
Oh yeah,
we love Charlie XCX. She's one of my favorites.
You've got to shoot for the moon.
Absolute icon. And also her mum and my dad actually emigrated to the UK for the same reason.
Amazing.
In 1972. If anyone's interested in that whole story, you can read the Wikipedia article titled Expulsions of Asians from Uganda.
Ah, right, okay. Did Charlie XCX also emigrate in 1972?
I don't think he was born then. She's 30. She's like 31, I think.
Yeah, fair play to her. She sits in that little gap between your age and mine.
Yeah, my dad was like 2 or 3 at the time.
There's no limits here. You can have whoever you want. We're not talking that dream dinner table alive or dead. We're talking alive. We're talking a guest you could actually physically speak to. How about yourself, Harry?
It would be Leah from Pest Control.
Okay.
Just one of my favorite bands doing such cool shit, and they're about to blow up. They're doing big tours. They're doing an insane tour in the US. Can't remember who the headliner is.
Obituary, I think.
Yeah, it's the Obituary tour, and
I think I've seen them. They're on the Not Loose Harm's Way show in London in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
aren't they?
I'm gonna go and see them.
Go into that,
try and fight the awful queues outside the O2 Academy to try and get in for the first band. Because the last time I went to an O2 Academy for a big band, it was Trivium, who I wasn't really there for, but they were being supported by Venom Prison, Code Orange, and Power Trip. And most people weren't even in the room by the time Venom Prison were playing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to do the annoying thing and get down early to try and avoid that and rub shoulders with the TikTok kids. But the
only time I've previously been to Brixton, I've only ever been, obviously not in London based, I'm Northwest originally and then Bristol for the past 15 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've only ever been to a show at Brixton once, and it was for Lorde.
Oh shit, that's cool.
And it was fucking sick. I think it was her first, potentially even her first UK show. She was still like 17, just off the back of pure heroin. Yeah, and I was ridiculously impressed by how well together a 17-year-old put a show, because it was real stripped back. It wasn't a huge big pop production. It was just her and a guy playing drums and maybe a guy playing keys or something, and that was it. And it was dead good.
It's a horrible venue though, that O2. Not to slag off the O2 Academy Brixton, because I know it's only just been saved from being shut down.
Yeah,
but it's got like a raked floor that makes it incredibly dangerous for any heavy bands, because you're not just competing with people in a mosh pit. You are fighting the fact that everything is slightly downhill.
Yeah.
And it's that Trivium gig that me and Luke went to had the most people carried out of a pit that I've ever. I think there were 4 people that had to be taken out.
I thought it was 3, but yeah,
it was 3 or 4. It was it was a bad time.
A few too many. Yeah.
No, like the whole show got stopped 3 times.
Yeah. It was mad.
Twice during Power Trip, once during Code Orange.
Yeah.
So they could carry people out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Never seen that before.
Never seen that before.
The premise of your pod and underrepresented people, I think my dream guest could be a bit of a crossover for your pod, and we fit on quite nicely, because my absolute dream guest, just based on us, but British metal podcast talking about fish and chips, is Rob Halford.
Oh, hell yeah.
So obviously, having Rob Halford on, I think
nice.
Maybe we just get him on and we do a cross, and we could chat about him being a gay man in metal and also get his chippy order at the same time. I think that would be could be quite a good time.
Nice.
Hell yeah,
legend.
Yeah,
I want to see Judas Priest so bad. While they're still around, they're still so good.
So good. I've not seen him for quite a while. It would have been one of the earlier downloads, something like 08. They just brought out maybe Nostradamus. I think they were maybe touring with that Nostradamus record. I think that's the only time I've actually seen them, and they were amazing. And it seems like they've just got better since. Like when you see clips of them live over the past few years, like especially off the past, like, you know, the past 2 records, they've been insane.
The last record was sick.
The last 2 records are so good.
So good.
Absolutely no right to be pumping out shit that strong. Like,
I know,
considering how a lot of like slightly younger metal bands from like the thrash era and like the late 70s, early 80s, how far some of them have fallen in terms of albums. The fact that Priest is still putting out albums that sound like good is crazy.
And like that fast. I mean, because, you know, you could sit and argue, like, oh, well, you know, I know the guitarists are a bit younger now. It's not going to get him. It's like, yeah, but the drummer still is. He's still got some age in him. And like, you know, he's insane. So yeah, long may Priest continue. Right. I think that's enough kind of music and pod chat. Should we dive into some chippy chat?
Absolutely.
We're at the chippy chat section of the pod, and I always love it when there's 2 people on because we get 2 lots of chippies, 2 new recommendations. So we'll start with you first, Harry. What chippy are you taking me to?
I am going to go to the one that is just around the corner from my school. It fed me many a meal when school lunches were not adequate, and it was Mottingham Fish Bar. It's still there. I went there a couple of years ago. It's a great little fish and chip shop. It's a little bit on the more expensive side, but yeah, no, it's a very good, solid option.
And that's Mottingham with an M.
Mottingham with an M.
Yeah,
in South East London.
In South East London, yeah? Luke, how about you?
Well, I'm actually going to do a repeat chippy for the pod.
Nice.
Go with a No Catch Co. in Brighton, which was also chosen by Grove Street's drummer, Josh Williams.
He did, yeah.
It's a fully vegan chippy, and as someone who's coming up on 2.5 years vegan, I had to try it out when I visited Brighton for a weekend last summer. And fun fact, while I was there eating my lunch, I was sat on a table next to US metalcore band See You Space Cowboy, who also just happened to be having their lunch at the same time at the same Brighton chippy I was in.
There we are. Look at that. It just shows, you know, like I keep telling people, we've got the map. We list all the chippies for all our guests on there. You never know who you're going to see in these chippies. You go down there, you could have bumped into Josh from Grove Street. Could have bumped into Luke. You could have bumped into See You Space Cowboy. Yeah, it's endless. You never know who you're going to bump into. No, I've heard great things ever since Josh came on the pod, and you know, I followed it up, and I always check these chippies out on Instagram if they've got one or later on sort of thing. And you know, obviously I'm not vegan, but I'm always really intrigued by, you know, the alternative options that are out there sort of thing. And when I was chatting to Lou Johns from Ranch Productions, who's a producer who's produced Ithaca, Employed to Serve, pretty much every great UK metal band that have come out over the past kind of 5-10 years, he was talking about chippy. I think it was called, I want to say it was called maybe the Seabird or something like that, which is Bournemouth sort of way, I think he said. And they would do like a banana blossom fish, which you know, was like an alternative to the fish or whatever.
I've not heard of that.
You'd see a lot of places that would obviously do like a veggie one, and they'd maybe do like a halloumi, like a kind of battered halloumi or something. So it's really interesting to see what the kind of vegan alternatives are for these chippies. So yeah, always happy to have a repeat. I think that's the second chippy we've had a repeat of, and interestingly, both in Brighton. So yeah, nice. Brighton keeping the British seaside tradition of having good chippies very much alive.
Big up the BM1.
Big up the BM1 chippy soon, yeah. Again, we'll go back to you, Harry. So I assume you're having chips. What sort of size portion are we getting?
Oh, I'm not fucking about because I'm vegetarian. And unfortunately, I've made a blunder here. I've gone for a nostalgic chip shop for me. Not the one that I've had the best fish and chips at, but I made that choice. And so I am also going to quickly shout out French's Fish and Chip Shop.
Always happy for a second.
In Wells next the Sea in Norfolk.
Right, okay.
They've got good vegan battered sausage, but I'm going with one that I've been to more times than I can count.
Right, okay.
So I'm getting a large chips to account for the fact that there is not a decent vegetarian option, but I love chips, so that's all fine with me.
So we're
large chips, and I'm getting both salt and vinegar on those chips.
Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. You're not a madman. Well, so like a large portion of chips in a chippy like that. I mean, if it's been there a while, I imagine, you know, is it enough to feed a small family?
It's enough to feed a small family. It's one of those proper chunky fish and chip shop chips. None of the like bullshit frozen ones out of the bag. They're proper decent chips. And if you ask for them like open, you just get an absurd amount of chips. They just shovel them into the bag
when there's no boundary of closure. Just
yeah. No, it's fantastic. Back in the day, my old order when I was a kid, that obviously I can't get now for reasons of having chicken in it, they used to do 5 wings and a regular chips and a drink for £3.50.
Oof.
And you couldn't get that you couldn't get these days because of woke.
Because of woke.
No.
Interesting. The second episode, there's something we can't do because of woke, and they've both been chippy based comments. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was what I used to get. But now I'm just down to a fuck off portion of chips, salt and vinegar. And yeah, the way God intended.
Would it not do any sort of like alternative that would be suitable, or would you maybe just get a bread roll so you can make like a chip? Or
yeah, I might get a bread
or anything like that.
Might get a bread roll. I think they might do a veggie burger, but I think my recollection of that is not great. I'm fine with just the chips. That's the thing that I always end up craving when I think about chippy. It's the chips.
Yeah, perfect. What about yourself, Luke?
Well, when I was at No Catch last summer, I had this like fun battered tofu thing, which had a bit of seaweed on it for some like salty seaside vibes. I enjoyed it, but I do love a sausage too. So like maybe if I go back there, I might get the sausage because I'm pretty sure they do them. I mean, what chippy doesn't do sausages?
Yeah, especially they'll definitely do like a vegan sausage. I'd be very surprised if they don't. Yeah.
In general, though, I'll eat anything vegan really, except those burgers that are just like peas and carrots like smushed together and like in breadcrumbs. Those things are mid as hell.
They were the classic 90s veggie burger, weren't they? Like, well, I don't know, I'm asking the wrong people. You weren't really around for the 90s.
No, I wouldn't know.
Being veggie in the like just at the late end of the 2010s, it hadn't evolved since the 90s. We were just on the cusp of shit starting to get better. But I remember the first year, you probably had the same thing, like of having to contend with those shit bean burgers, especially in like McDonald's and that. They didn't update their menus for like a good 3 or 4 years, and it was just that battered mush, and it was horrible.
I'm Indian. We've been vegetarian forever. Like we've worked that shit out.
I'm talking about fast food chains, man. I am very well acquainted with the joys of vegetarian Indian food.
I mean, it's nice now. I think that it took them a while, but having a lot of friends that are vegan and stuff like that, we'd always have to be really careful. You need to go somewhere, and like you'd be looking quite hard to find somewhere where there was even an option on the menu. And now it's just a given. You'll go to places and there'll be 3, 4, 5 things, which I know isn't the same as having 20 things on a menu, but compared to what it used to be, and it's not, that one thing, it's like every single wedding you go to as a vegetarian, it's like, cool, I know I'm going to be getting some sort of caramelized onion and goat's cheese tart because that's what the wedding, the veggie wedding option always is. I think, it can only be a good thing. I mean, and also like for businesses, like if you want to make money, why dismiss like an ever-growing portion of your population? When you got your battered tofu, Luke, just going back to your chips, you getting a large portion or are you more regulated?
It's too much for me. Yeah, I don't eat that much. I'll just get like a regular portion of chips. Yeah.
That's fair enough. And are you getting salt and vinegar as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Sort of just a regular amount of salt will do just fine. But I do like to go a bit harder on the vinegar. I do like anything pickled also is good with me, so I'll throw a gherkin on as well.
Oh, gherkin, yeah. That's a great little thing to have on the side, yeah. It won't be the same for you as a vegetarian. What are your thoughts on like pickled eggs?
I've never actually had a pickled egg, but I love pickles. I went to Austria a couple of weeks ago on holiday. I got really into sauerkraut, which isn't applicable for a chip shop shout, but I've slowly just become anything that's been left in vinegar for about 2 months, I'm going to eat that. So yeah, I'm with Luke on the pickles front. I love a pickled gherkin.
I actually have eaten a pickled egg.
Yeah.
Have you?
When I was a kid, I ate one. I thought it was all right, to be honest with you. It was a bit strange, but I thought it was all right.
I've never had one.
Pickled onions as well.
Oh yeah, pickled onions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can pickle anything, I guess, but I mean, they're the main big hitters, I guess, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Pickled peppers, also good.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had one of those big, massive peppers in like, you get them in a lot of these kind of international supermarkets. They're usually on the counter. So they have the Dubai chocolate there because obviously that's the big thing that everyone loves on TikTok at the moment. And then next to it, they have these huge, so they're like full size, big, crunchy pickles like that. But they come in like a bag with like maybe like a really sour juice in. So it's like pickle juice, but it's in like almost like they'll be branded. So there'll be ones that are like the juice will be like fucking Gatorade or Monster or like those just like the super sour sweets, like the warheads and toxic waste and stuff like yeah. So it's basically it's a pickle in like and they're massive, and they're just a single one in a massive bag swimming in some sort of mad big sour juice.
I've never heard of that in my life. I've never heard of that in my life. I'm gonna have to go and do some searching.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing this
I'll try to
weekend.
do it, yeah. Well, I know 100% there's definitely a place on North Street in Bristol because it's just literally around the corner from me, Luke. So next time you're in town, it's worth a wander over this way because
Okay.
they've got a hell of a selection. They've got some in really spicy ones as well, some in really sour liquids, but the premise is a massive pickle in some form of liquid in a bag. Yeah, and there's loads on the counter. I don't know how many people buy it, but I guess they don't go off either. That's the joys of it. Do any of you get any sauce with your chippies, especially if you're not getting anything on the side? Coming to you, Harry, first. Would you get something to kind of either dip or pour all over your chips, or
Always mayonnaise. I'm a fiend
Mayo?
for mayonnaise.
Okay.
Yeah, I love mayo. Whether it's vegan or regular, if I can get vegan, I'll have it because it's usually basically just the same thing. But yeah, I'm a fiend for mayonnaise. It's a problem.
none of your more kind of traditional sort of like your gravies, your curries, anything like that?
Do you know what? Occasionally I'll get gravy, but it's usually mayo or ketchup. I know that's a very southern thing to say because I know the people further up north love the curry sauce, love the gravy, but slightly less available where I am. I don't know whether that's the same in Bristol. But I love curry sauce, gravy on chips. But no, I'm a traditional condiments kind of person.
Yeah. What about yourself, Luke?
Curry sauce always.
Yeah.
Not something I really ever used to have, but when I was at No Catch, they have their own tartar sauce that they make themselves.
Right. Okay.
I tried that; it was pretty good. Do like a bit of ketchup, but it's not really it's not a condiment I have. It's not a condiment I buy.
No.
But I do like a bit of tomato ketchup now and then. I just like sauce in general, really. So like anything more fun or more different, maybe like something chili based or like maybe like barbecue or something.
Yeah.
I'll stick that on chips. Why not? Yeah.
Nice.
You're a fan of like hot sauces and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have hot sauce like on basically everything that I eat.
So obviously this is one that a lot of people get kind of shocked by, and it causes probably the most division on this. It's about whether you order anything to eat whilst you're waiting for your food.
Yeah, no, I don't think I do. I think I'm happy just to wait.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I guess for you, if you're just kind of getting chips, there's probably not as much of a wait.
It's not that long of a wait, no.
This is more for, when you walk in a bit, fish are on order, so you walk in, you shout up your fish, you put your order in, and you've got kind of 5-10 minutes to wait, so you just get something out of the cabinet to eat while you're waiting, but I'm guessing it doesn't really apply to you guys so much.
No, unfortunately not.
Well, I haven't done it before. I'm open to the idea, though, because sometimes, like, not a No Catch, but like a different chippy. I actually haven't been to a chippy in Bath since I've been here. I've been here for 2.5 years, but I just
shameful
if
behavior.
I'm like back at home or if I'm out somewhere and then like I don't know, they might have some like vegan like nuggets or something or like something like that. You have to wait for those.
Yeah.
Or like a pie maybe of some kind.
If they're having to make that vegan thing special, you probably haven't got a vegan thing sat ready in the counter. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's something that's already sat, like a little sausage or a little fish cake that's already sat in the counter that you don't have to wait. Otherwise, it could be a never-ending circle, just waiting for something while you're waiting. And
sounds like a nice idea, though. I hadn't heard of anyone doing that before I started listening to Riff and Chips podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it does sound because it's nice. You have your little start. You have your little starter, and then like
exactly, yeah. Like I say, just a little sausage to share with the dog or whatever keeps everyone happy. Last question for both of you. This transcends all diets. Can of pop. So we'll start with you, Luke. What can of pop would you normally get from the chippy?
Something fruity, usually. Yeah. And refreshing is always nice. Something maybe lemon, orange. These days, if I can help it, I try not to support the big corporations.
Yeah.
Just fuck them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's anything like sort of citrusy or like something like that is usually my kind of vibe when it comes to fizzy drinks. Obviously full sugar, none of that diet shit.
Yeah. As one of my mates refers to it, bloke Coke. Like if you went into somewhere and they had like maybe like a traditional cloudy lemonade or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds quite nice. Yeah. My family actually used to own and run a grocery shop. Yeah. It was in a much more better off area than the one we lived in. So we used to sell quite a lot of like these fancy different like fizzy drinks that all look really nice, like Fentimans and like
and
stuff like that. And sometimes I'd have one and they're always quite nice.
Yeah. What about yourself, Harry?
Like I've got two answers depending on the chip shop. The default option is always a Pepsi Max because I think they've put something in that to make me addicted to it. And as much as I wish I could quit, Nothing will replace it.
It happens to the best of us. I know countless people that are just addicted to Pepsi Max, so it rings true.
If I'm going for my actual hand on my heart, the thing that I think of when I go to fish and chip shop that I hope they have is a Vimto.
Yes.
I love Vimto. Classic British pop. Or actually the niche choices, and this is even harder to find, but a can of Dandelion and Burdock.
Oh no, you won't struggle up north.
Oh no, I know, but down here it's a fucking wasteland, mate. It's a nightmare. But yeah, no, Dandelion and Burdock. And not the Fentiman stuff, because they don't put enough sugar in it, and they've gentrified it. It's got to be really sweet, really syrupy. But I love Dandelion and Burdock.
It's amazing. It always reminds me of like my nan. So growing up, my nan's on my mum's side were like South Yorkshire, like near Sheffield, Doncaster, and like.
So am mine.
Yeah, so they used to have a pop man that came round with like proper glass bottles, and you'd go out and get it off the van, and they always had a big bottle of Dandelion and Burdock, cherryade, limeade. So good. It's pure sugar.
Yeah. Oh, but it's so good.
Yeah. Vimto, I mean, great pick. I mean, anyone that knows me knows I'm obsessed with Vimto. I've actually got a Vimto tattoo
I love
on
that.
my leg. Such is my obsession with it. With the P in it. I've obviously got the P in it as well. Right. I think that's the summary of the Chippy Chat. So our last section obviously gives us the chance to kind of tell you what you've got kind of coming up in the future, especially in regards to the pod. So this section's called...
It's iconic.
Iconic. Yeah. Thanks to Ed again, as usual, for the screams on this. My go-to. Have you got any cool episodes coming up for people to check out?
Well, we will. We don't know what they are yet.
Oh, okay.
We record quite close. We record like quite close to release date, so we don't really have anything in the can yet.
No.
But we will have something cool out.
We will have something.
We always do.
Yeah.
We always do.
Yeah.
The sneak peek is that I am extremely busy, and as you all know, Phil, editing a podcast takes a fuck of a lot of time.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And so we're playing with stuff to kind of give me a little bit more time to breathe between episodes. So we will be doing some slightly shorter stuff with just me and Luke, playing with just having a chat about music, because at the end of the day, that is the thing that we love doing. And another one that we've got coming up, we don't know when it's going to happen because it was postponed, but we will be interviewing a member of Shooting Daggers, London hardcore band, at some point. I don't know how soon that'll be coming, because they're just about to embark on an EU tour, which is why we were going to interview them last week. We couldn't do it. We were going to try and reschedule to this week, and we were like, fuck, you're touring with Comeback Kid. So we parked that for the moment, but that is one of the things that we'll definitely have coming in the pipeline.
Nice. And just for people to catch up on, do you want to give us a little back thing of the past couple of episodes that you've had that people might want to catch up on?
Yeah, cool.
So at the time of recording, the last one that came out was with our friend Connor, who plays bass in a Bristol hardcore band called Pat Walk, and also is a promoter under the name Blowout Nights. That was a really nice chat about their experiences promoting and playing in bands and being non-binary.
Yep.
Before that, we had Tim, also from a Bristol hardcore band. This one's called Uncertainty.
Yeah, great band. Make sure you check out Uncertainty.
A really fun one that we did at the start of the year was with Luke, aka Vegan Luke, who is famous for liking Wallace and Gromit and hardcore.
He's a London hardcore legend, is Luke.
Right,
He's a national treasure.
National treasure. TikTok, minor TikTok celebrity, and it is as today most liked social post by such a long way it's not even funny.
Really? Okay, there we are then.
Yeah, like our usual posts do somewhere between like 30 and 60 likes, and that was like 180.
Over 100.
Everyone loved it. But yeah, those last 3 episodes are very fun. And
even
then
my sister messaged me and was like, "Oh wow, you did Vegan Luke," and I was like, "Yeah, we did." How do you even know who that is?
Yeah,
it's the first one that's properly broken containment. It was great.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, make sure you go and check out those episodes, as well as, I think, well, at time of recording, you've got 30 episodes by the looks of things, I think. So plenty of you to all go and catch up on if you haven't heard the pod before. All that leaves me to say is, Harry, Luke, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you giving up the time this evening to chat to us.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, is that okay if I do some shout outs to some
Please
bands
do.
and other podcasts?
Go for it.
All right. I've got some shout outs here. If I missed any, Harry, then please add some at the end. I want to shout out to all of Bristol hardcore. The specific shout outs to Putt, Walk, Uncertainty, Tension, Overpower, Canehurst, Docile, Vicarage, and promoters Blow Up Nights and Shitty Futures. UK metal bands Gorgon Vomit, Vacuous, Atom, spelled ATVM, Obnoxious Concoction, Lobotomica, and Moon Reaper. Shout out to Harry and George of Death Goals, Craig at Eggy Tapes, Nina Floyd and Shem at Serpent Temple Podcast, Faye at Metalheads Podcast, Amber and the rest of Out of Rage Network, Katie and Natalie at Just a Girl Podcast, Lauren and Lily at Pit Brew Podcast, Joseph at Autopsy, every trans person in the UK and beyond. We're on your side, and we will win. And finally, free Ola and free Palestine.
Yes.
Fuck yeah, absolutely. I think there are only two you've forgotten in there. Nat from Holy Ghost Tabernacle Choir and Harry from Tom from Flesh Creep.
Oh yeah.
He's Harry. Tom from Flesh Creep.
You're Harry.
Those two. I'm Harry.
That's you.
That's me. It's a fantastic guests we've had on. Every single person we've had on the podcast is a blessing. That's it. That's all we've got to say.
Great shout outs, great message. Take care of yourselves, guys.
Thank you, Phil.
And if I don't see you before, I'll probably see you around, Luke. If not, Luke, I don't know about yourself, Harry, but Luke, I imagine you'll be at Incineration.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see you at Incineration Festival.
Blood Incantation.
Nice.
If you can go out of your way to come and see little old cops in a little old dev, we will promise we'll put on a good show for you. Hopefully we're not clashing with someone insane like Blood Incantation, because I really want to see him. Yeah, catch up, guys, and I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. Cheers. Phil. See you later.
That was Harry and Luke from the Out Crew. Harry took us to Mottingham Fish Bar in southeast London. He had a massive bag of unaccompanied chips with salt and vinegar and some mayo. His default can is a Pepsi Max, but his heart yearns for Vimto. Same, mate, same. Luke took us for a second visit to No Catch Co in Brighton. He's getting battered tofu or a vegan sausage with regular chips. He's getting a normal amount of salt, but a heavier splash of vinegar, and if the option's there, he'll have a pickled gherkin on the side. He'll wash that down with a non-corporate can of something fruity. As always, I want to see your chippy teas too, so don't forget to tag us in any pics or let us know your favourite local chippy on socials using @RiffNChips. Thanks to Rob Collier for providing the dive bomb, Edgar Gibbs for the screams, and Ryan Westwood for the artwork. See you in a week's time for our next episode.